Hello, everybody. Welcome to this live stream. My name is Dank Bart, the Pirate Poet. PHART stands for pretty hot and reasonably talented. I am here with Jim Rajan. Rajan, is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Rajan, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, and he is the principal of the Subtle Quality School. I met him through Instagram, just seeing his page and really resonated with it. And I was like, hey, why don't I just check out his website? And it turns out that he had his information there to contact him. And it was like, oh, this is a really cool human that I vibe with. Like, why not just like hit him up and have a conversation and see where it goes? Because I like the internet a lot. I think I recognize a lot of issues with it. I grew up with it, but I also really value the ability to connect. And so I felt like this would be a fun experience to kind of also highlight how the internet can be used in positive ways to connect and move humanity in ways that are more fulfilling for us. And so this is my first time actually meeting Jim, and I'm excited to be here with you.
Me
In
too.
here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Matty. And yeah, and I'm the same. I find that there are lots of people who they say contact me, but then actually they don't really want you to. But me, I'm in it for the community. I'm in it for the meeting people and the exploring. And you and I live on different sides of the world, but yeah, as you say, the internet's an amazing thing. Why not get in there and use it and actually meet real people?
Yeah, absolutely. And people that you connect with, because it creates a lot of potential with, of collaboration and different things that just wasn't really possible. And I definitely see, for me, it's more with the internet, the issues with it, I think, have come with more of the structure than the technology itself. And that's where I think also like what your work kind of and subtleties and sensitive beings, I think that kind of understanding and framework is kind of what needs to be brought into technology in order to allow technology to come into its fullest self instead of just being this
Hmm. Yeah.
business machine.
It's not just one thing or the other, is it? It's not just technology or humanity. When we bring them together and they work together, they fuel a really amazing things. But if you just leave it all up to technology, like if we just leave it all up to AI, well, then everything just falls to pieces and becomes really stale and lifeless. So
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
really quickly too. I think that's like kind of what we're seeing like in this
Mm.
process, and
Mm.
like this narrative of the tech companies that are like, "Ooh, we're gonna come in and save everything," but and that's a narrative to justify their massive amounts of investment. And um, but there's like an amount of slowing down that it's like, wait, maybe like there could be some of that investment, but we don't need to like put all of our eggs in one basket as they keep trying to convince us in. And that's where I think a lot of the role of artists and people coming in and being like showing up on Instagram, even though we might not be like fully aligned with it, but putting our voice into the mix of that ocean is important to attract and connect with people on these deeper levels.
Yeah, I think for me, I really value the fact that I get to, be on social media and meet people like you, and you feel you can reach out to me and say hi. Can we have a chat online? Or I mean, there is a whole conversation in the aspect of investments and tech companies that could take hours, and that this isn't that space, but it is enormous and possibly quite dangerous. But let's leave that aside. Yeah, the fact that you and I get to communicate and share ideas, this is what our school is about, and this is what I do. It's the capacity to listen to somebody else and share ideas with them and see where things go, instead of having this idea that everything has to be very rigid and structured and this is how we do it. There is no this is how we do it. There's just kind of human community and the creativity that comes from that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I really resonated with you, because I was like, I listened to your stuff and I was like, oh man, this person's like speaking to me. And there's also something really important about that, is like recognizing like, oh wow, I'm not just like my own crazy loon off in my own little world. It's like there's other people like me, which is so important, that can help us, especially for people that are like kind of existing outside of normalcy in ways that like being like, oh wait, I'm not broken. That's just one of the messages that I think you promote a lot, which I really value. I personally never really felt broken. I always felt like it was very easy for me to recognize that. It was like, the outside structures, but there was also an element of being able to work within it to help transform it from the inside.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't think I ever felt broken. I felt other people thought I was, and I felt excluded. And yeah, and I felt I wasn't allowed to belong to something. And I think that's why I created my own way, or my own religion in a way, because each time I tried to connect or be a part of something, I kind of got chewed up and spat out the other side. So eventually, after a while, I just thought, well, I'm just gonna play with this myself, work this out myself, and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate that quite extensively. It's been a lot of my own journey and that process. Can you give us a little bit of some of that story and kind of how the subtle quality school kind of came to life?
Yeah, so I work with people all around the world. It's really difficult to give it a name, because people take a name, label you, and then decide what they think you are. So I call myself either a seer or a healer, and I'm really lucky because of the internet. I get to work with people literally all around the world, and I've been doing that for quite a few years. And a few years ago, somebody asked me if I could teach them to do what I do, and I can't, because I can't teach you to be me. What I do, the skills that I've developed through my 51 years of life, I can't just go, here, you do this. Or on social media now, everything is, here's the 3 best ways to do this thing, or this is how to have success in that thing. And that's not a real thing. It's not real. It's just that person used those things. But actually, if you look at that person's life, they used a million other things as well. So I had people asking me if I could teach them what I do, and I have a very rigid and strong integrity and moral code, and I was like, I can't teach someone to be me, because that's not what life's about. But what I can do is I can help you be the amazing thing that you came here to be. And so I developed all kinds of tools. And I mean, it's funny, I have a kind of little thing that I say to the people who come to our school, which is, I didn't sit down and write a curriculum or write a syllabus like, okay, we've got to have this, and this in the school. What I did was I put a huge piece of paper on a wall for a year, and just allowed the school to show me what it wanted to be. And that's kind of how I live my life. It's easy to use your mind and go, right, well, I'll do this and this and this, and then I'll, that never really fulfills the human being. The delivery of information, especially for highly sensitive people like you and I've got the internet. Why would I need someone to tell me what to do? What I found was that if I could develop a space where people come and share and go deep, and find themselves more and more willing to go deep and understand creativity, and understand kind of old, really wonderful old teachings, then I'm not giving you something, I'm kind of reminding you of what you are anyway. The modern world is wonderful and amazing, but it's also got a lot of faults. And if I can help you peel off some of these things that are in the way of you being able to really express yourself in your life, well, then you and I both benefit from that, don't we?
Yeah, and I would say all of the rest of reality as well. And I definitely,
Mm.
in my understanding, everything's woven in together. So like actualizing that little process of yourself, even though it might feel like you're just like a little drop in the ocean, you are affecting the ocean at large.
Mm.
And being people that are stepping into that, other people can see it and being like, oh, wait a minute, I can go and do whatever it is that I feel called to do, whether it's being a chef or an athlete or whatever. But it's about cultivating a reality where we can allow that to be what our guiding post is, instead of being like, oh, well, I have to make X amount of money, and so I have to do X job to do whatever, because that's the system of linear processing that has brought us to how to be successful in this world, yet leaves us hollow beings. And then we're like, oh, why are all these other issues that, I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole, because it's just like so extensive. But
Yeah.
like, this is that process, that tapping into ourselves, that goes, oh my God, I'm alive. I can do something that is valuable to me, and then in turn becomes valuable to the community.
Yeah. And the more you allow yourself to unlearn all those pieces of culture and all of those conditionings that people have given you, your parents, they told you to do this or that, or that life is like this or life is like that, or your religion said this is what life is, or this is what God is, or your community, you went to school and you got affected by all those people around you. And again, some of that stuff is amazing and life-changing and magical, and also some of it is really painful and hurtful and segregative, separationist, and so, if there is no, for me, there is no adding something to the human being. It's not that I give you some piece of special information that makes you special. You were born amazing. The work is to remind you of that. There's the line, what is it, something like all children are a genius until they go to school, or until they fall into the education system, which is pretty unfair, because the education system has to kind of be what it is, and it is amazing in so many ways, and at the same time, you have to conform. Any institution or organization that you find yourself in, you do kind of have to conform to that, and when you conform, you let go of a part of yourself. All right, if you do it once, okay, there's kind of no problem. But if you have to do that 10, 20 times, what of you is left? And you're then playing all these games of conformity, and you get lost. And then, of course, in the modern world, depression is rife, because then you go on social media and you see everyone looks beautiful and talks wonderfully, and and actually a lot of that isn't even real. And we're continuously kind of fighting ourselves, or putting ourselves down, or punishing. That's a good word, punishing ourselves. I've done it myself. I did it for years, and
Me too.
and it's kind of, and why, if you stop just for a minute and go, hold on, why am I even doing that? What is that? And if you delve deep enough, you'll find that there's actually nothing there, and you don't get to blame all those people that you wanted to blame, because they were just a victim of a victim anyway. And everyone is just literally making life up as they go along. And therefore, why don't you do that? Instead of following everyone else or conforming to what you think is actually a thing that isn't a thing, my idea is just make it up yourself and go with it and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally how I ended up here. I mean, that's a lot of what my pen name represents. It was a given name by a friend, and not a um it's not taken on by myself. It was gifted to me by the universe during a psychedelic like journey. And the joke is, I smoke so much pot, my farts smell like dank. uh, and so it's just like this universal like call, like, this is what you got to do. And I'm like, oh man, like, really, this is what you want me to do, universe? Like, pretty much every professional conversation I've had with event producers and stuff are like, bro, like, you need to change it. And I'm like, it's not up to me. I mean, it is, like, but my thing is about accepting and like following within that, the weird, the white rabbit down the hole into Alice in Wonderland, and seeing what kind of magic shows up. And I continually see magic, and every time, like, I feel like I'm put into a corner, and I'm like, oh God, what do I do now? The universe just like puts up a sprout, and something shows up that drives the next layer. And I feel like that's kind of exactly how like I ended up with you, and just like finding string and keep pulling on it, and creating that reality that supports it. But I think it's important to what you said about needing an ability to conform a little bit. Well, like my mom used to always say, is like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, structure isn't bad. And I think that's part of where our current issues are, is because there's been so much trauma within the institutions, and that then people go, well, I have to just reject the entire institution, and now there's no structure, and then you're just in a place of like chaos, and then you're going down whatever avenue that is, and there's no structure there. That's also leading into patterns of non-fulfillment.
And exactly. And you're in a system, play it, don't be a fool, be intelligent, be a wise individual. You're in a side of a system, a human societal, with with law. Yeah, absolutely, play those games. But like you've just said, promoters said to you, you sure about this name? So why? Because their idea, their foresight is that doesn't conform with what is successful. and that makes you feel, then you doubt yourself. Oh no, but this came to me in a really special moment in my life. No, this feels right. And what happens in life is that in a way, we are forced to go against how we feel. And as high sensing people, I mean, I'm ultra sensitive. Otherwise, I couldn't do the work I do. And my body shows me every time I go against how I feel. My body is like, oh no. Here, have this piece of pain. And I'm, and I'm long enough in the tooth now to know, okay, this is a sign. This is telling me something. All right, slow down. Let me think about what I'm doing. Let me be careful and not cautious, but handle things with care in each moment in life, because also many people have learned that punishing others and being difficult or egoism or being the loudest one in the room gets them stuff. Many people understand that, and they learned it early because it works, but it doesn't mean it's right, or good or value creating. And what I like is to sit down with people who, maybe you're not sure of yourself. Maybe you don't really know what you're doing, and you get hurt, and life is difficult and kind of slaps you in the face every now and again. But you have an idea of how you would like life to be, and you're willing to do what it takes to go there.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's so much just like what this world is needing. Like what you were talking about, like that's like social media in a nutshell, and its current era and current form is who can be the loudest to attract whatever the buzziest. And like, like before there was AI slop, like whatever, if you're dancing on TikTok, whatever it is you're on, and you feel like that's what you need to like cultivate your audience. Like I'm not here to like crap on people. Like you do you, whatever. But like I feel like for me, like that was slop before there was AI slop. Like I've never really felt like social media was ever not slop. It was just like, hey guys, you have to like you said in the beginning, like top 3 pieces of how like you can make it in here as a platform and like get this all going. And like for me as an artist, how I feel also as a platform, if the platform constantly has to have people selling programs for you to how to use the platform to be successful, as an artist, that's not a platform that's working for me. I need a platform that is like, hey, here's like processes and steps, and we as an organization can provide a framework that can help you step up to having a working career, instead also like not aiming for like ultra fame, being like, hey, how can you actually just have a working career and live a good life?
Yeah, I think what you've just said there is really interesting, because underneath what you've just said is that a lot of social media is geared up for your failure, not for your success. And I don't begrudge, and I'm not saying, I mean, social media means like you and I get to talk to each other, and I get to have a school that with people in the States, Canada, Europe, all over the place. What does happen is that the more I have somebody telling me what I should do, the less I believe in what I feel and what feels right for me. And hold on a minute, I need to buy this course to be able to do this thing, to win at something. And let's say you buy that course, and let's say you get that thing, and let's say you win. What happens after that win? The win, we're all after the win of the 100,000 followers or the $100,000 or whatever the thing is. But what happens after that win is that you're still empty, and all you did was use somebody else's thing. But if you're really using your own heart, and I don't mean that in a kind of new age spiritual way, I mean seriously, if you actually genuinely carefully listen to intuition and yourself and go with that, it's so fulfilling. And you don't need the pretend fulfillment that's off in the distance of the 100,000, whatever the thing is. You're just enjoying each step of your journey as you take it, as you fail, as you succeed. There's a wonderful little concept called 4 failures for every success. And basically what you do is you come along and you try something new and you fail, and most people go, all right, well, yeah, that's not for me. Playing guitar is not for me. It hurt my fingers. I can't do that. But some people will go, all right, I'm going to have another go. And then you have another go, and maybe you fail again. And then if you fail a bit more, then you get your success. But then the thing is that after that success, you've got another 4 failures before the next one, and then another 4 failures before the next one. So eventually you don't care about failing, because you know that it's not really failing. It's just, everyone talks about this nowadays. It's just you learning and finding stuff out and investigating. I mean, I'm 51. The first 30 years of my life were me just researching what it means to be a human being and trying to work out people and stuff and politics and life and money and all that stuff. And then after a while, you kind of get it and you're like, right, okay, so now I can make some good decisions for myself. Or I can carry on letting everyone else make decisions for me and having the bank tell me what to do and having this teacher tell me what to do. But it's a really, really fruitless existence, isn't it? And it's kind of like, life is so short. I was 18 like yesterday. If I'm 51 now, life is fast. Why not really just do it your way? And yeah, it is hard when people tell you that you're a failure or you'll get it wrong, or what do you think you're doing? Or no, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. Have a real profession. I mean, my dad is Indian. I was expected to be, a lawyer or a doctor or a professional. And yeah, and I was all kind of tattoos and dreadlocks before I was even 20, but I needed that. That was good. That was good for me. That wasn't rebellion. That was playing with life. That was like, all right, this life thing is really cool. What should we do? Let's try everything, hone it all down to what I like. Right, I'm an artist. I love making music. Right, I'm going to make music. Hold on. I kind of really like sharing with people and making communities. And and I wanted to say teaching, and I do love teaching, but when I teach, I don't teach. I kind of just sit and listen to other people and watch them teach everyone. So I don't know where I'm going with that. I think I would say, yeah, it's that there's so much there for you. Why would you even think of asking someone else?
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, like really tuning into yourself and being like, well, they can tell me, like, it's good to have guidance, and outside like mentorship. But even a mentor, like if they're trying to, I mean, ideally you're finding a mentor of something that's aligned with you and stepping into that space. I actually have a poem that I just read at my friend's opening yesterday for his new studio that ties into all this. It's titled Notes on How to Dream. And it starts with like, have too many blessings to count, like every breeze plus every like seed of crack. So it's just like these kind of everything plus everything creates like this massive amounts of abundance just in this nature of life. And that once you get that first, like, you think you're climbing this mountain peak, and then you at the top of the mountain you realize there's nothing but mountains, and then like you got an escalator to like the top of more mountains, and you just like tattoo your face on this mountain, and then you're like, oh my god, now what is there to do? Oh, now I'm going to go to Mars, and then I'm going to like put myself on top of there, but my heart's still empty. Oh, then I'm going to tattoo my face on the entire multiverse, and still you're like feeling empty inside. But that if you really cultivate your life based upon life, you're serving life, and then you find out that life serves you back in reciprocity, and that will lead to a fulfilling experience. And there was this meditation that I've been doing throughout the month that it says like that fulfillment is much more important than success. And we've created this weird defined definition of success that has all of these material metrics that are really just, most of them are justifying the organization of the economic model, which it is what it is. Like, we're in with these structures, and like that's part of like this really sticky issue that we're in, is that there's some good things in it, there's some bad things in it. So like there are a lot of like the resistance movements want to just blow it all up, and then the other sides of the movement are like, well, but we have to have some sort of like safety and like kind of order and structure. And it's like the navigational process isn't just completely throwing it all away and burning down the empire, and it's not just like letting the empire just do what it is wants to do, but that middle path of where we navigate. And I think that's where a lot of like artists and people like us can come in and like navigate and recognizing the structures, but how can we within ourselves transform them?
Yeah, and there's a lot of this all or nothing, yes or no, black or white, right or wrong, polarized, kind of, it's this or it's this, or I mean, yeah, look at politics at the moment, for example. Let's not even go there. But
Yep.
it's not either this or this. There's all of this. There's an entire spectrum, just like there's an entire spectrum of sensitivity. There's an entire spectrum of autism, of neurodivergence. It's not just like, right, you have ADHD, done. No, you are this magical, interesting, creative, wild human. Just go do some cool stuff and see what happens. And for artists, this is the thing. When we use this, if I get it correctly, this quote by Salvador Dali, who says every painter paints a cosmogony of themselves, and a cosmogony is the myth of the universe. And it's like, and that is the reason for art, and that's why art is so important. And you can't polarize art, and you can't say art is this or art is that, because art isn't painting anymore, but also it's not someone hanging a urinal upside down anymore, or it's poetry, and it's the written word and the spoken word, and it's music, and humans need that. And if we're just going to say no, I'm sorry, no, it's this, or you're this or you're this, black people or white people, what's that all about? Have you seen a person who's actually black? That doesn't exist. There's not a thing. Just like there isn't a person who's actually white. Well, albino people, yeah, maybe, but even still, no, it's not a thing.
People of African descent are albino.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like human beings, that thinking is super basic. That shows just how basic human beings have the capacity to be. But then bring art in, or science, or how science and art used to be the same thing 200 years ago, before industry came along and sold us pills for whatever. It's like, yeah, there's the scope of the need to be artistic in a human being stops us being so it's this or it's this. No, there are, when we fall into polarism, if that's the right word, maybe that's the right word, I'm not sure, it just makes it brings out the stupid in a human so easily, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is it's the fear factor, which is reasonable because we do die. Life is dangerous. And so that's kind of the string that they pull, and it's very easy to get into that reptilian kind of lower brain in defense mechanism, especially when our nervous systems are just being constantly bombarded. And we're like, how do we like move through this process and in this like greater reality? And also like what you said, that kind of it is this or that stops a lot of people from their creative process and exploring their creative process. And they're like, oh, well, if I'm not attempting to feel called to make this a career, if I want to be a doctor and I'm called to being a doctor, then I'm not an artist, and I've got to like section my life off and just be one thing or another, and I'm not allowed to have like these different things, even though we tell each other that we're allowed that we should have hobbies, but you're not an artist if you're just doing it as a hobby and all these different things. And one of the greatest poets in American history, modern America, was William Carlos Williams, who was a doctor full time, and poetry was just this thing that he did. And some of the form, like the size of his poems and the way that they're structured, are because he was writing them on little doctor notes, and so it was just a really small piece of paper.
Yeah. And you don't pigeonhole yourself. You don't just say, well, I'm just this one thing. You are all of these things. When we go with how stupid a human being is capable of being, what we notice is how many people have the need to be offended by something. And then we start looking for things to be offended by, and that's when this polarization, this need for this is right and this is wrong, or this is good and this is bad, comes in. But yeah, art is artism. Artism is freedom. It's freedomism. It's and when you're able to express yourself freely, you don't hold it in and then cause yourself some kind of chronic illness over the course of 10 or 20 years. You you allow these things and you allow expression. It's been really well documented that in societies where there is democracy and people argue over things openly and find answers, that people actually feel much more responsible in society, and they care about their society. But when there's no, you have to do this or you have to do that, no, sorry, you're not allowed to do this, but you are allowed to do that, or when all these things come in, when you limit a human being, you just create something that is a shadow of its former self. But if you're able to kind of not separate yourself from all of that, but if you're able to see the true nature of reality as it is in front of you, without thinking about what you want to see and saying, oh no, I want life to be like this, or life should be like this. Now have a look and see what it actually is. Then you can make really good decisions for yourself, based on, for example, how many times have you made a decision in your mind and you've been thinking about it for a few days and you're like, no, it's this thing. And you go and tell someone and immediately they say, no, that's a terrible idea. What the hell were you thinking? And you go, oh man, yeah, no, you're right. I'm an idiot. No, forget it. Compared to how many times when you sit there and you make a decision with your heart and you're like, I don't even know why, but I have to do this. And you sit on it for a while and you go and tell someone and they go, no, that is a terrible idea. And you say, I don't care. I'm doing this because I need it, because that expresses, what is required in humanity. Normally you then go and do that thing and it creates the most amazing life for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm in a 40-year process of doing, really. I mean, I dedicated my life to poetry after college, studying theater, realizing I was a poet. That was 15 years ago, and I was just like, boom, I gotta go. And it was like no practical understanding of it. And I think that's also part of, like, I think there's this McKenna quote of like, the universe, like when you are courageous and showing up for what you feel called to do, that the universe will like show up and support you. And I've definitely found that to be true, and not in like a woo woo like way, but like, and also being able to like just do potentially like manual labor and various different work that like isn't necessarily aligned, but it gives you the support that you need to move forward in your life. And so it's like not about just saying, oh, the universe is going to support me, and then you just like lay down on the floor and you just like magically like lift it up and like puppeted towards whatever. It's an activation process of you also moving forward and continuing to like dive into the potential of what is out there and can arise. And I've had a few moments in my life where I just needed to follow my heart, and it was like instantaneous. And it was also some of like, they were the worst best decisions ever, and like in the moment, like I knew they were bad choices, but I just also knew that like I needed to go through with them. And in the long run, I got to where I'm at now. It's the only reason my son exists, because if I would have made those other decisions, there would have been the outcome would have been in the moment more positive, but it didn't get me to the path that I needed to be here, connecting with you. And it was a very much intuitive, like heart space, like, oh my God, why do I need to do this? I don't know why, but here we go.
Yeah, and you fix on the long term instead of these pretend short-term gains that aren't really a short-term gain. I mean, I've had hundreds of jobs. I tried all kinds of different things, and I didn't really like any of them, and and none of them really liked me either. And I didn't really fit in these things, but I learned so much about human nature, about just how wonderful humans are, but also how incredibly devious they are, and all kinds of things in between. And it set me up for when I made those decisions, like you, where I was just like, right, I don't do that anymore. I am now this and done. There was a power behind what I was doing. No, a human being can't live outside of suffering. Buddhism calls it the Saha world, the world of suffering. You can't have a life where there's no suffering. I don't believe in manifesting. I don't think that's a thing for me. I know lots of people sell courses and all these things, and I have to ask myself, why is that person selling a course on manifesting? But anyway, it's not, because the idea of manifesting, I suppose, is I want this particular future outcome to happen. I will make it happen. And that's not what it's about. You don't get to decide the future. The future has nothing to do with you. In fact, what you're doing right now in life is, this is the future, and you're cherry picking from 100 different futures in every single moment. So there isn't a future, there are thousands of them. And when we allow ourselves to really just, listen to, you listen to intuition, or you listen to the voice inside, or you listen to your heart, or whatever it is, or you remember what that teacher, the only teacher you loved at school when you were 10 years old, you remember what they said to you, and it's like, yeah, it's that thing that's further than just intellect and reason and rationale. When you go there, it's impossible that fascinating things don't happen. And I know, we all need to have a bit of a financial plan for the future and make sure our families are secure. I have a daughter and all these things, absolutely. And at the same time, that doesn't mean that I have to live like a robot or a slave or a mechanism all my life, because then what did I do? All I did was, I maybe provided for my child, but at the same time, I taught them that life is this meaningless, horrible thing that they have to go through, that's full of pain and punishment, and you never get what you want, and you have to do something awful just to, just to survive. Everyone has suffering. Most of the suffering in people's lives does them the world of good. Obviously not all of it, but a lot of it is really quite necessary. It helps us understand and realize and see and imagine,
Yeah, and the resistance to build ourselves up to be strong enough to be alive. Like, without resistance, everything is just flaccid and can't stand up on its own. Like, if you've ever seen a plant that's grown indoors and doesn't have any fans or anything that are blowing on it, like, it doesn't have enough strength to hold itself up. We need that resistance in order to become what is possible within us and within this weird, strange, magical reality that is life. Like, a thought that I go through in a lot is, like, I'm not afraid of dying, and I don't like to use the word afraid in like what I'm going to say next, but I think it helps exemplify it. I'm more afraid of not living before I die, and like how to, like, capture this juiciness that is like this weird temporary experience that's like literally like a blip on a radar. Even if you live to like 1,000, it would still be a blip on the radar. And we get like so caught up in the stories that we're like conditioned into without really wanting to experience the fullness of life. And then people are like wandering around being like, what's the meaning of life? You're in the meaning, and you can't uncover the meaning because you're in it, and you are the meaning.
Yeah. I love Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, where he basically says there is no meaning to life. There's just the meaning that you create. That's what art is bringing some kind of meaning. Look at the ancient Hindu and Buddhist understanding of samsara. Samsara is, that you continuously live these lives of birth and death. You live the suffering of birth and death over and over again, but then through some kind of practice, eventually you surpass that and become enlightened. But the real understanding of samsara isn't continuous living and dying. It's the continuous mini living and dying within your life daily. And many of us aren't given the ability to do these mini deaths within life. And we're told to, no, everything's fine. You'll be fine. No, it's okay. No, you don't worry. You'll be all right. But we need to go into those darker, painful places and pull ourselves out of them so that we know that we can do that. To be a strong, resilient human being is not about, having big muscles and being powerful. It's being able to see Okay, well, that didn't work. That that really hurt. That just broke my heart. But I don't want to hear someone say, it's okay, there's plenty more fish in the sea, because what that person is saying is kind of, just cover it over. No, it's fine. No, let's pretend life's fine. Everything's fine. No, let's pretend everything's okay. But some of the most amazing artworks have come from when that person is in that cycle of a mini, ending in life in some way. You've seen them, and you can see them, and when you see them or you hear that piece of music, and it's just like, wow, that person has just transmitted exactly how wonderful all of those aspects of life are.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Van Gogh is like a of that, like, except his whole life was kind of like in that muck, but like the process of the art was just so amazing. And unless you see it like in person, it's, you don't quite get like the textures of it and the vitality of it that just like leaps off of the canvas, which was, yeah, that, that process of cultivation and exploration that allow even his own, the suffering, that it's not like, I'm not a fan of just being in the suffering, but like recognizing that there is beauty within it, and and that process of becoming and flourishing, and out of it
Yeah.
come beautiful things.
Yeah, life is this just this endless, wonderful journey experience. It's I don't believe in life school. I don't think I'm here to learn something. I don't, because that, or soul contracts. That's not my cup of tea at all. I What I feel is I got to be alive. I got to be alive as a human being in this time, in this era, which is a fascinating time to be alive. Right. Okay. What should we do with this? Let's see what happens. Let's kind of try stuff, and let's really inhale each experience as much as possible. But then, of course, when each experience is done, okay, cool. Well, we did that and it's done. Wonderful. We'll put it over there. I don't need a trophy cabinet. I just need to go to the next thing and see what happens next, and find my way. I work with lots of artists who get stuck, and end up hating what they're doing because they had one big win and then just spend the rest of their life copying that thing over and over again. Look at how many, I don't know, rock bands, musicians they get their one thing everyone loves and they just try and repeat that over and again. And it's intensely boring for them just as much as it's intensely boring for that audience. Of course, it's scary to have a win and then go, all right, yeah, I did that. And anytime you want me to sing that, I'll sing it for you. But I'm doing this thing as well. Then you keep yourself open and yourself fresh. You're not doing it for someone else. You're doing it because you need to do it. That's what art is for me, is that you can't not do it. It's not about the money or the winning or the my paintings are in a gallery or my music is on Spotify or whatever the thing is. It's like, you just, as a human being, your very nature is to create.
Yeah, I feel that 100%. That was kind of it's been like my life journey. It was just like, guys, like, I can't not do this. Like, when the producers were like, hey, I think you might need to change your name because it might not be like commercially successful or whatever, or like it's going to turn people off and we don't want to put your name on our flyer because of like whatever conditioning we have. It's just like, this is something bigger than me, guys. Like, too bad. I'm just going to keep going. And that's what life needs. Life needs the artists to be able to show up authentically and not just be stuck in this commercial vacuum. Like, that's the future. Like, I'm really excited about like helping bring in, is where artists have the bandwidth to explore their creative self. And if something hits, like, cool, but yeah, not trying to just recycle it over and over and over, where it just becomes this sprawling metaverse of the Marvel universe, but it's just like spitting up the same themes over and over, and they're trying to chase the next billion, which is like, whatever. Like, Marvel's all right, but it, as someone that really appreciates art and media and various different things, I definitely get pretty bored of it. Like, not doesn't take that long because I'm like, all right, cool. Like, it's flashy in various different things, and some of it's interesting, but just to keep pushing that same button over and over and over. And there is this one quote by William Blake or somewhere, read all of his stuff, but it was basically saying that like without the poets, society becomes a rewriting of itself over and over and over and over, and inspiration dies. And then essentially at that point, it's just like a single cellular organism. And life is, if you're a single cellular organism, life is going to hang out that way for a while, but eventually it's going to do what it did to get to us here and develop these multicellular organisms, and just like becomes this crazy weird chaos soup. And I really resonate with what you're talking about, like not being tied up within these soul contracts and these different things, because that can definitely tie people into, in the same ways that this system ties people into being like, oh, I have to follow this path and I'm on my soul contract, but I'm not sold or unsold around it. But like it really, I've seen people, and I see a lot of people like in Boulder, it's very like woo spiritual community that like get caught up in that, and then they keep themselves in the pattern instead of being able to, crack open and become their fullest butterfly.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I like how Rudolf Steiner used to talk about spirituality, and spiritualism is wonderful, but there has to be a continuous deepening of a code of conduct or a moral code. I come across people who are highly sensitive, who are very much in the air, and I see straight away my work is just to bring that person down to the ground. It's easy to, because there's just so much information out there. It's easy to go, right, yeah, this is a thing. This conspiracy theory. Yeah, conspiracy theory. Let's do that. Yeah, no, this thing. And it's like, yeah, but you could make your own mind up about that. What do you actually think of? If I take away that person's information, what are you doing? And that person is literally just dangling in the air like, I don't know. Right. Well, then spend some time knowing what's right and what's right for you. But then the only way to create value in society is for you to have your feet on the ground, and for you to be in society, not fighting it, because there's no point in fighting anything, but creating a movement. This is what artists are here to do, is continuously create these tiny movements. I spoke to someone contacted me the other day and said, hi Jim, I'm a failed artist. What do you think I should do with my life? I was like, no, that's not a thing. That doesn't exist. You're an artist. Everyone fails and everyone succeeds, and everyone half fails and half succeeds, and everyone has really bland moments and really interesting moments. And no, you just do what feels right for you, and find the positivity and the goodness and the joy in it, but know that doesn't have to be tied to money. What's his name? Tony Robbins talks a lot about people's need for significance, and people have significance, or they want significance, because then they will get stuff. Like they will be adored or loved, or they will feel great about themselves, or they will feel like a winner. And oh great, I made it. I've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. I am a dude. I'm the one. No, for like 2 minutes. And then you're just bored of yourself again, and trying to be something that you're not over and over again to maintain something that doesn't exist. Why not just, J.R.R. Tolkien of Lord of the Rings, he was a teacher, and he just found himself writing on the back of a napkin one day the first words to The Hobbit. He didn't know where that was going to go. He didn't know, the massive millions of dollars of those films. He didn't care about that. He was just expressing something. He was just like, yeah, I really feel this, and there's this image and this character I have in my head, and maybe this thing happens. And he made that adventure for himself. Well, that's how I see it. That's what I'm guessing. So I'm the same. I'm making my life's adventure for myself. That's what you're doing. I'm making sure that I don't damage anyone else's path or dim anyone else's light along the way. I'm kind of making sure that I pave a way for some other people if they want to come with me, but I'm not asking anyone to, you know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like there's an invitation, but it's not a requirement. I've definitely fallen into a lot of those patterns that you're talking about, you know, as like an artist feeling like I'm just barely making ends meet. I'm like, what's gonna be the thing that just like breaks me through to this next level? And I've just been like so dedicated in the process that like I've kind of understood it initially just because I've grown up around like spirituality and a lot of like alternative thinking. So I kind of had the seeds in it, but a lot of that thinking kept me from enjoying a lot of the journey that could have been more enjoyable. But it was definitely part of this process of like refinement. And I'm now like in some final like stages of it. And there's even times where like on social media, like I hold myself back from just like wanting to post because of like more about how I feel about the structures. I don't need to like get into all of that, but you know, that's part of this journey of life and the journey of becoming. And I like the idea of the artist writing and creating for themselves and not trying to create the thing that the audience is necessarily wanting. And Rick Rubin talks a lot about that a lot. And that's how I feel for myself too. Like a lot
Mm.
of the art that I'm writing is based upon my own personal like belief systems, but it's also like reminders to like this is how I want to show up in the world. I'm not like just saying, hey, this is how like you should show up in the world. It's like, hey, this is how I want to show up in the world. And then that reflect out in the process of my creation and the projects that I go forth and create.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and there will be people who are watching or listening to this, and they will say something like, "Yeah, well, it's okay for you guys because you had your success, but you know, for me, it's really hard." And many people just won't start something unless they get the guarantee that it's going to work. You know, well, there's no point in me being an artist because I'm not going to make any money. But that's nothing to do with art. You know, you've already ruined it before you've started. You're already trying to make a business. If you're going to make a business and be honest with yourself. And all right, this is a business. Yeah, you know, but we don't get to complain that, you know, it's an awful human trait, complaining, and many human beings spend a lot of time complaining instead of doing and exploring and trying things out, and it doesn't really make sense to me. I have these people who say, you know, it's easy for you, you know, you it just kind of came naturally and you did this thing, and I was like, you have no idea how painful my life has been. You have no idea. I could make you cry in a second, the suffering that I went through. But there's no point because that's my story and I hold it inside myself. And that is what drives me, you know. And it's for that person to flick the switch and say, what is it that drives me? And be honest with yourself. And if money drives you, brilliant. Money is a superb thing. You can do some amazing stuff with money. Right. Okay. So if money drives you, go do that thing. If something else, whatever it is that drives you, and I find that many people, and I don't want to be general, but many people don't know what drives them. They don't have that internal driving force, or they don't think they have. You kind of have to pull it out of them and go, look, this, and then they see it.
Yeah. And I would like to say something about like my journey. Like I would say I've talked to people about this or like about like money and various things related to art because I've made like maybe like in 15 years like $1,500, maybe a little more off of my poetry. But there was a lot of success in like showing up and in community, but it was just the drive to create itself that was definitely the emerging process. And I still feel like I am moving towards where I want to be in success. But it's been a extremely difficult process to say yes to and like become what it is. And I'm still in that process of becoming. And so that's like the idea of something being easy, like there's maybe a little bit of ease in it, but there's also a lot of like tension within that process, which is what makes it into the adventure of life. I was at a festival a few years ago and talking to this guy on the dance floor, and he was like, well, if it was easy, like you wouldn't want to do it. Like you want to live life on hard mode because that's what like makes it juicy. and like the opportunities. And if you can stand in yourself and be resilient to keep showing up, even if it's not necessarily working for you in the ways that you want it to, there will be some opportunity and some juiciness that will create some sort of fulfillment. Like right now for jobs, I clean Airbnbs, but I just continue to show up in my community. I connect with people like you, and there's just like a continual evolutionary process that is like that strong rooted foundation that allows you to be like the tree and rise up to and reach into the sky and like beyond what you thought was possible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've done those cleaning jobs and those working in supermarkets and all kinds of things as well. And my thing was music, and I started making music and started producing and recording my own music, and even started doing it for other people. And yet, at the same time as doing that, I wasn't focused on my success is X, is this thing. I have to be a musician. I was just like, I'm on this path, and I'm going to do what I like doing, and then I'm going to listen to what is told to me as I'm doing this. And slowly I was told, no, well, why don't you kind of put a video on Instagram of you talking about stuff? So I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll do that. And then on Insight Timer, I have a lot of courses and things on Insight Timer, and I had music on Insight Timer, and they found me on SoundCloud or something, and they said, can we have your stuff on Insight Timer? I was like, yeah, cool, all right. And then they put me as a teacher. And I was like, oh, right. Well, they've called me a teacher. Well, maybe I'll make a guided meditation. I'll put some music underneath it, my voice on top, and people really liked it. So I did another one and another one. And instead of being super focused on, no, I have to be a musician, this is my thing. I was like, no, I love creating things. What is being asked of me here? That, right? Okay, I have no idea how to do that. Let's work it out. I'll go and I'll look on YouTube of how to do this thing, and that's the fulfillment. We become very tunnel visioned. Like those horses that would have a blinkers or whatever the thing is called, where we can only see this thing, and life is all of this. And we don't stop to go, oh, hold on, wow, that's really interesting over there. Let's go over there. We're just like, no, I have to be like this. I have to, we punish ourselves really, really, really unnecessarily. And another thing, talent. We go, oh, but I'm not talented. I don't have any talent. Or, oh, you're really talented. And talent, yeah, talent's great, but it doesn't get very far on its own. And if you can stop and listen to people and ask questions, and ask good quality questions, like ask good quality questions of yourself and of life, you can't go wrong, mainly because there's no such thing as wrong. But you're going to have an adventure. But if you don't allow yourself to have an adventure, you just won't.
Yeah, and I've definitely been very guilty of the blinders. And with this, that's like what led to, I won't necessarily say unnecessary suffering, but like inability to enjoy some of these experiences in my life that were like should have been much more enjoyable, like at various music festivals and like working with my community. And like all the music festivals I've been to, I didn't pay for them, I worked as a part of the community. But there were a lot of times where I was just like so focused on like I need to get myself out there as an artist, and like everything is like this like struggle mode, instead of being able to be like, hey, I'm in this process of building, and there's these beautiful people around me and various different things, and how to be present enough and to listen enough, like you're saying, because it's definitely like it's kind of part of the human patterning to like see that mountain in the distance and be like, I have to be so focused on that that you don't recognize you're feeling hungry, and yet you're not looking at the plants at your feet that you could be harvesting to feed you in the moment, that will help give you the energy to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's so beautifully put, and you mentioned struggle mode. I've just written that down. Yeah. And we get in struggle mode instead of in what do I want mode, or proactive mode, or just kind of taking good quality action mode. I have people who send me messages every day from all around the world, and some of them just love the fact that, because I'm no guru, I don't believe in guruism. People send me messages and I just kind of repackage what they've said and hand it back to them. and they love the fact that they're not being held accountable. This thing of held accountable, I don't like that. It's too punishment based. They love the fact that they have someone on that journey who's side by side with them, who's going, hold on, wait, stop, hold on a minute, you forgot that thing, and they go, yeah, let's bring that in, and they let's add bananas to the mix and cinnamon, and and it can be so, life can be so exciting just as is. Like you say, yeah, you can look off at the top of Mount Fuji and panic and go, my God, that's going to be horrendous. Or you can look down at the floor now and go, but this is beautiful. I could just plant an orange tree right here now and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. We're coming up on the hour. I was expecting it to be about an hour. I've got more time if you are still interested in talking a little
Yeah,
more.
I've got time. Yeah, no problem at all.
You want like another half hour or so? Is that something?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know how it works with live on Instagram, but I mean, yeah, whatever works for you.
Yeah. I mean, I've never done this before on Instagram Live, but I'm pretty sure it just keeps rolling. So we'll just
Perfect.
keep doing it. Yeah, exactly. Planning, figuring out what is here that can enjoy and not be worrying about this far off distance that then becomes, it's almost like that mountain is death, and we're so focused on that we are not able to enjoy the process that is being alive, when eventually, soon enough, you're going to be at the mountain, and then you're going to be like, wait a minute, like I wanted to be back over there before you're already, and then it's too late. And then you're on that, in that process, which they say, I've read some various different things, that like the number one thing that people say on their deathbed is, I wish I would have done more of what I wanted, of following myself. They say that, like, nobody on their deathbed says like, I wish I did more of what I didn't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's, for me, I feel that there's a lot of punishment and self-punishment in the world, and we're all kind of punishing ourselves because of something that we're not, or something that we are, or that we shouldn't be, or we should be, or I should be doing this, or I ought to be doing that, or I have to do this. And and if you go into nonviolent communication, we all say to our kids, well, I love you, but will you please just go to bed? Or you have to do your homework, you have to go to school, you have to do this, you have to do that thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, it's hard work being a parent. And at the same time, we then take that have to do this, I have to do that, I have to be successful, I have to be able to provide for my family, and we take it and we kind of, like you said earlier, tattoo it on our face, and then we're never able to live up to it. And so we're continuously chasing some pretend thing that somebody else has told us is a thing. You go to school, like we said earlier, and you go to school, and I was talking to my sister about this earlier. You go to school, and the idea is that you're nothing. I educate you, then you're something. Right, so I'm nothing, and I require something external to come along and make me into something, and then I win. So I must punish myself repeatedly until I get to where I have to go, or I should be like this, or I should be doing that, or I'm 51 and I should be have lots of money, or I should have all these things. And I've done well in my life, but the most I've done well is it creating beautiful things, and feeling fulfilled. If you look at my bank balance, that doesn't necessarily show it. It might do. It depends who the person is, depends what you're looking for. But one's own capacity to thrive in a beautiful existence, that only comes from you. It doesn't. No one's going to give you that beautiful existence, but you can make it yourself, and it isn't difficult. And I know also that I have people who come to me and they say, well, I want to do that, I want to be an artist, but it's really hard. It's like, well, yeah, actually it is. If you're going to be honest, it's bloody hard. But what you could do is just today go and buy some paints and some paper, done. And then tomorrow you could just sit and draw something, and then and do another thing tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and you can just do something for, 5-10 minutes a day, instead of what's it called, death scrolling or doom scrolling or whatever the thing is, or self-soothing because you hate your job and you come home from work and you're just broken. Well, what if you came home from work from a job that you didn't like, but you're super excited because, my God, now I'm at home, I can go and paint, or I can go and make music, or I can go and write poetry, whatever the thing is, I can go and craft something out of a piece of wood. And that can be the only way for not only your own happiness, but then you're an example. And then your kid comes home from school and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, Dad's making this thing. Awesome. Yeah, what can I make? I fancy making something. I'm going to get some paper and glue some stuff together. And why not? And it is simple, but we do punish ourselves by saying, no, you have to do these big steps and it's really hard. It's hard to be an artist, and it's hard. This world is a hard place. And yeah, it can be, but it isn't. Not all of it is hard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like finding the right kind of hard. I think like school trains us to kind of like doing a hard to like deny yourself in order to get into that, instead of like teaching the whole process of being resilient and going into something that's hard. And like if it's hard, instead of just being like, oh, I give up, being like, okay, there's something to this hard, and like this kind of weird upside down nature of reality that we're like living in, where they put the wrong, it feels like we have the wrong metrics up top and like the right metrics at the bottom. And so like we get this wrong kind of understanding of hard, and this idea that life should be easy, and someone out there has this easy life. I honestly think that's like probably the biggest poison in reality, is the idea that there's an easy life. Like life is a process of difficulty, and if you're thinking that someone else out there has this easy life and that there's some easy path, I would say there's a good life, but there's no easy life. And there's so many people out there trying to just find the easy life. And then when something is hard, they're like, well, this must not be the right path because there's supposed to be an easy life.
Yeah, completely. And if I just give you $10 million and put it in your bank account right now, which is what or the majority of people kind of think they want,
Yep.
you wouldn't know what to do with it. And you'd kind of squander a lot of it away. Yeah, you'd kind of maybe invest some of the things or whatever. But aside from the money part, you would start to get really suspicious of all of your friends, because you'd think they were just in it for the money, and family members, and it would isolate you. And if you don't, you've got to go through the steps of things to build your character, to be a resilient, strong inside individual that stands by their word and stands for what they believe in. Because if you don't, yeah, maybe you get that thing and it's going to make your life worse, isn't it?
Yeah, all of a sudden that golden ticket was exactly what you didn't want, but you didn't have the foresight to understand that. I mean, even in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that whole like process is a process of purification, to find who actually is in alignment, and not just chasing the golden ticket because they're like, oh, I got a golden ticket, now I'm like king of the mountain and everybody else should just be like whatever. You're still sitting there with that lack of fulfillment. But you might feel successful, but if you're successful without feeling fulfilled inside of yourself, you just become it's like a demon that just like try, because you're still like, but I'm so successful, why am I feeling so like still like down and like not aligned with myself, and now I have to just like consume more and more and more because there's this idea of success, and I am successful, but I don't feel fulfilled. And then that emptiness just keeps like ravaging forward.
Yeah, and that emptiness is rife, and then you're forever trying to fill it with something, or looking for somebody to help you fill it, whether it's a guru or a teacher or a mentor or whatever, and it doesn't work. I mean, going back to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, what a film. And Gene Wilder, I mean, just one of the most wonderfully creative people, actors, who wasn't massively successful, but what he did, in that film, and there are others, it's just, you know, that man has a place in my heart for his body of work. But he wasn't some of these huge, big, you know, he wasn't like this millions of Tom Cruise actor, super famous Hollywood. Yeah, yeah, you know, he had his successes, but those successes, they came from beautiful pieces of work, you know, like really, really crafting a character. And yeah, on the other side in that film, you've got all these kids who, you know, some of them are really spoilt and some of them just don't care. And it's not their fault. But again, it's easy to blame a system and say, oh, well, yeah, but I have to be like this because of that thing. Or, well, my parents were like this. You know, how many people do you know who've ever blamed their parents for something?
Yeah.
It's my job as a parent is to do the least amount of damage possible. I'm going to do some damage. I try my best not to, but I'm a human being and I'm going to mess up stuff, you know. But you don't get to blame other people for your failings or what you didn't get or the pain that you carry, because they didn't have a clue what they were doing. They didn't even know that they were doing something wrong or wronging you in some way. They were just scrambling through life with the awful skills that their parents gave them, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, so the answer is get your skills down, get your toolbox full of really good. You don't need 5 hammers. You just need one good one, you know, that you can really rely on, that does a lot of jobs well, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, how I've always gone about life is developing skills, making yourself useful with those skills, and then the resources that you need start to show up. People are like, hey, I need that skill, like boom, and then you show up and do it. And I mean, that's pretty much how I've survived, was in community and being willing to show up. And some of the skills were just like being willing to like lift stuff. But like if you actually focus more on developing your skills first, and skills that are aligned with doing what you want to do, life will show up and give you what you need to be in reciprocity. And if you're not just throwing it all, you know, down the well of consumption, you know, you'll be able to develop what you want into where you want to go, and to be into that process of fulfillment that is a life and adventure that you enjoy, that you love. And it might not be somebody else's journey or adventure, but it's yours, it's authentic. And it's like that Gene Wilder, I actually went to the same theater program as him. Like what's so much more important is that quality. And I think that's like, if people start gearing towards that, that will help, you know, them into their flourishing. And like, and I definitely agree with taking full responsibility for your own process and your journey. And that's like so much of like what I think leads people off this path, is one of their path is wanting to put all whatever processes that are the conditions that brought them into that, instead of being like, all right, now it's time for me to root down and find a path forward that's for me. And I was friends with Rennie Davis, who was one of the main activists of the 1960s. He was one of the Chicago Seven, which was a 1968 police riot that happened at the National Democratic Convention in Chicago. And that throughout, after a lot of his work as an activist, he became much more in the kind of spiritual journey, and like really tapping into that idea of that we are all responsible, and like stop pointing fingers at everybody else. If we're all just in this finger pointing game, everything's going to just like the roof starts caving in and we all just start pointing at everybody else, instead of being like, all right, you got a hammer, all right, you got a saw, like let's fix this roof, instead of just pointing all the fingers at each other and everybody's going everywhere, and roof just continues to fall in.
Yeah. And you've just said something really nice there, you know, you know, it's your path, and you do your path, and it's easy to say, right, well, I'm doing my path, I'm doing my path, but doing it and doing it well, you know, when there is an abundance of information, it's easy to skim over things and superficially receive everything. You know, you can go on social media and there's a million quotes by this person or that person or whatever. But like something we do in our school, for example, is we sit with one thing for a few months, you just one word or one line, because then you deepen that one thing, and you know, and then in doing one thing really well, go listen to whoever the teacher is that you like, or whoever the kind of influencer is. But most of them are just saying the same thing over and over again. So what is that one thing? Okay, let's take that one thing and really sit on it and expand it and play with it and deepen it further than that person could or did themselves. And then your path just becomes wonderfully rich, because we're not scattered trying to just like fill holes in all over the place. It's like, right, okay, I'm just going to do this one thing really well, and let's see how it actually evolves. Because we don't give ourselves time to receive the result. We're so busy doing the thing and waiting for the cool stuff to happen, and it doesn't happen, and then we're like, oh no, I'm a failure. But if the cycle of prosperity states, when you do good things happen to you, but they don't necessarily happen the same day or from the direction that you put your good energy into. But if you allow yourself to really become a craftsperson of life, like a cartographer, a map maker had to get in a boat and go round Africa and kind of I have no idea how you would do it, but and make a map as they were going. It's to be a craftsperson of something gives you so much more fulfillment than right, we made this thing and off you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And what came to mind was coming back to like gardening and planting. Like, it's like when you're planting a seed that it's not going to just be up tomorrow unless you got like a bunch of like crazy weird like scientific gear. Even then there's still like a process. And that in order for it to like have its full harvest, it takes process and time. And I think really like our current commercialized reality is like so result focused that you're like, oh my god, I didn't have like my X amount by this time, so I'm a failure, and not recognizing that like you just had to like give it more time, and you had to like be patient and sit with it. And I really like that idea of sitting with one specific thing and just like dialing it in. I mean, that's why the Beatles were so good, because that's like they were just obsessed with that one thing. And like Lennon and McCartney, they just had this vibe, but they were doing it since they were like 15, 16 together. And so by the time they even had their first like major hit in 64, they had been creating together for years and had this like deep synergy. It wasn't just like, oh, here's some like, well, I mean, like modern era with like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. They're just like, you're a good singer, and now we have some writer coming in, we got some costumes. But I mean, the music's all right, but it doesn't have the staying power, the standing power of the Beatles. That was because it was just in their own authentic self that also continued to explode beyond just the, love music of like, ooh, let's hold hands. It grew into like this much more robust cultural tapestry. And I feel like if they just stayed in that initial phase of, oh, we're just writing like fun little pop music about love, they probably wouldn't be the cultural icons that they are now.
Yeah, and they would have probably hated themselves at some point along the way and hated each other, which eventually they kind of did a bit, and it's probably blown out of proportion. But we can do both. We can play the game and be in society and do the society stuff, but we don't have to take it so seriously. We can do it, but we can also be in this place of living how you and I are talking and become a craftsperson and do one thing really beautifully. We can do those in parallel. Your work. I mean, I work with highly sensitive people, but but everyone is highly sensitive. They just don't allow themselves to be. But for me, the way is the more you live in natural cycles in your own, and listen to natural cycles, which means your natural cycles, well, then the more it becomes fun and it becomes a game instead of a slog and the kind of struggle mode. It's like, Yeah, all right, yeah, I've got a job, I earn money, I can play that game, I can be nice, I turn up to work, I do a good job, I listen to people, I'm friendly, I'm there for them, they're there for me. I build a good culture in that sense, while at the same time I'm building an internal culture that is bulletproof. That, yeah, I get hurt and stuff falls apart and I fail and I feel crap about myself, but I know that while 10 years ago that would have lasted for a year, now it lasts for about a day, and then I'm like, all right, yeah, that hurt, let's carry on, let's see what else is there for us, instead of the kind of punishing myself for being such a failure all the time, and oh my god, and everyone tells me what a failure I am, and oh, and then we go in further and we're like, why they say I'm a failure? It's because, my god, they don't trust me, no one trusts me, my god, no one even trusts me, god, I am absolutely useless. No. And the human being has the capacity to drag themselves down this awful spiral staircase to hell, but heaven and hell are not down under the earth or up in the sky, they're inside of you, and therefore you can play with both of them. You can do some really interesting things when you're in both of them. I've written my favorite piece of poetry that I ever wrote was when I was in a really suffering place, So again, don't take, we take things on face value. Society is like this. Society is bad. It's rigged. It's unfair. It's such an unfair society for artists. Politicians this, politicians that. Yeah, that's all. That's there. That's always going to be there. That's been there for thousands of years. You don't get to whinge about it. You get to be the master of your own invention.
Yeah, and if you do that, it will help transform those systems that you're feeling oppressed and stuck by. Like, the most valuable thing that you can do is show up in for yourself in a way that is in alignment with that, and still operating within society enough, but being, so that we can move forward, because we can't just neglect structure completely, because society is basically is a formalization of structure, and how humans can created a structure for us to exist within, and to completely neglect structure is to invite I mean, that's like before the big bang. Like, that's, if that's what you want to do, then it's not going to be in this physical reality. Like, we need to have the boundaries of our rib cage so that our heart can be in there, and the boundaries of our veins so like the bloods can flow through it and pulsate through it. And humans activating ourselves into our own process, into our own journey, into our own personal destiny, I think is the balm that will transform the systems that we are caught up within. And that's also not just ignoring them and being like, oh, I'm just gonna like let the system do like it's all like weird thing that it does. But if you let it crush you as in that place, then you're not in like be able to be in your positive self that can actually like take engaged action, then you're not going to be able to transform it in the ways that you want either.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have the choice whether or not to be a disruptor or an interrupter or a complier. I really like the line that you have here, which says, "Artists sensing their way through the field." Now, artists sensing their way, not intellectualizing their way, sensing their way through the field. Well, what is the field? Yeah, well, the field is life, but also it's the internal field, and bringing that internal field or that internal meadow or whatever you want to call it to the actual external one, and playing with those things. Buddhism talks about the interdependence between the human and their environment, and your environment affects you just as much as you affect your environment. But what we all think is, my environment is affecting me. Oh, I have to do that. Oh my God, I have to be like this and I have to do that. And, life is telling me what I have to do. but you as a disruptor, as an interrupter, as somebody who, not doesn't we don't need to be a rebel. There's no damage necessary, no destruction required. You can just go in and go, hold on everyone, I'm just going to throw that in there and see what happens. And everyone's like, oh, hold on a minute, no one did that before. And something changes. And you didn't do it for you, and you didn't do it because you want everyone to think that you're amazing. You did it because you were aware that you had an idea that might change things. What's that guy's name? Ideas that spread. Seth Godin. I love Seth Godin. No, yeah, it's got to be a good idea. Crap ideas don't spread. Badly thought out ideas don't go anywhere. But when you have a really good idea, and it doesn't, and it's not yours, and you don't own it, but you can be the one to kind of throw it into the mix, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely been like kind of my life journey and my life path. And it's been really good just like hearing you talk about the perspective, because I definitely get caught up in like, oh, I'm gonna be like a famous artist and like blah 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 and like that narrative, because it's just, it's there. But it was definitely as I've gone on, like the longer the journey's been going on, like the more I've just become settled into just me doing my thing and allowing it to be what it wants to be instead of trying to force it. And that forcing it really never felt good. And I mean, that felt for me, like being on social media felt like I was always in an element of like forcing it instead of me just like sharing. And so that's kind of the process that I need to like step into, is just being like, oh, I'm just going to share on social media because I can, and it's me just doing my thing instead of like caught up in the narratives of whatever in my mind, and like that's how I got connected to you. That's how this unfolding happened. And there's like these levels of refinement that we can just continue to like step into, which is, and I really like the idea what you talked about, not needing to be a rebel. Like we don't need to, like, fighting this system is not what's going to transform it to get where we want to be. It's how to be a pattern disruptor. But within that pattern disruption, it's not about dismantling, it's about transforming. And how can that process unfold and into that, you know the cocoon, like we're in the imaginal state of the caterpillar where like everything's turning to goo, and now we have to figure out what it's going to take to crack the cocoon. But it's not going to come from all this logical place, it's going to come from this feeling place. And I mean, I see I'm around my community, there's so many people working on different ways to organize regeneratively within, it's not all crypto, but there's like just so many different people working on these different new patterns that we can step into. But all, and it is a process of cultivation and refinement versus a one of like domination and top down that says like this is how it's going to happen. It's that deep listening. And I know sometimes it can, people like probably out there are like, oh, you whatever, you're just like sitting in like your nice house or whatever. I mean, it's nice enough, not crazy nice, but like that be that process of listening, and that we can have it, and that there's enough time and there's enough space, and that we're in this grand, ethereal, eternal, like crazy game, and that somehow it trusting that it's going to work out, and that the trauma and the pain is real. We don't want to neglect it, but it's also not what we are totally bound to. And once you are through this human life process, that your energy is off into wherever, and you are, and it, the scales balance themselves out in some crazy weird field. And the best thing that we can do is show up for each other and be in those the spaces of listening, but also interacting and interplaying with society, so that we can like be on the game board. If you like completely remove yourself from the game board, which I have friends that have, I've got friends that are like hardcore anarchists and just like live out of a backpack, and like they only ID they ever travel with is their passport when they're leaving the country, or various different things, and they're doing their thing, but they realistically don't have the like skin in the game to really transform it in a way that they would like to. And they're just like, their kind of belief system is that like the empire essentially is going to just work itself out. But I am a believer of putting ourselves in it, and that's why I continue to show up on social media, because there's like something about being in it that is powerful.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same for me. And sometimes I get more follows, and sometimes I get less, and sometimes I get more likes, and sometimes I get less. But it's not what it's about. It's like you say, it's using one's voice, and it's standing up for what one believes in, and standing by your word, and saying, I'm the kind of person who turns up and shares their ideas, and I'm here for the exploration. And you can go down the kind of negative thing of society and bash society, but it's a system, and every system eventually made by human beings stops actually working for them, and the most important thing becomes the system itself. And we all know that, but me saying that has not changed anything. And me going and standing outside the Houses of Parliament or the Congress and shouting, yeah, I can do that. And sometimes that's a really, really important thing to do. There are ways to help people think and see things that they don't see, that have a longer term view than violence, I think.
Yeah, well, and I mean, violence, unfortunately, generally just justifies the system for using its full power. Like that's what I really understood from studying the 60s. What, yes, and the protest movements, it's powerful. If you feel called to show up and be in the streets, and like, I'm all for it, but there has to be also a recognition that there's like some greater operational capacities too, and like we can all showing up in our own unique ways is vital. And but that like especially like in this current reality with like there's so much just military tech, like just I really believe that they like to foment the chaos because then it justifies their actions. So then it's like how to like really activate this peaceful reality. Like, I mean, here in America, like I don't want to get into it, but it's just like friggin' chaos. And it is important for people to show up and to care for each other. But like, what is also the deeper listening that needs to happen?
How can you do these things in an intelligent way that will actually have a long-term effect, instead of, like the kid who hates school, who on a Saturday night goes into school and throws a brick through the window, right? What is that? That kid is still adhering to the system. That kid is saying, yeah, I'm fighting, I'm being a rebel against the school, but I'm still saying that the school is the most important thing. So he's still looking at the thing that he hates and saying, this is really important, I'm going to hurt it. But, or he has the capacity to go, all right, maybe I can do better. Maybe, I mean, I had somebody who told me that I would never, in my school, one of my teachers, one of my last days of school, who said, you will never do anything of use in this world. And I took that, and that really hurt me for many years. Until I was like, all right, well, let's show you, but not show you for the sake of showing you. All right, I'll use that. Let me use that and see what I can do with it. Instead of, Gandhi was an incredibly intelligent individual, and yes, he went down non-violent ways, but it wasn't passive at all. It was really, really intelligent the way, and he knew the system, and he knew how to play the system. And that's, and let's take it back to the beginning, and the work of an artist can be that.
Yeah, I think it is that. And they've conditioned us to think that it's a job, but it's the work.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Jim, for coming and hanging out, having this beautiful conversation. It's been an absolute joy, and hope everything is fabulous there in Spain, and your journeys just continue to blossom and bloom. What is a good way for people who feel called to potentially work with you or discover more about you? What is a good way to?
Yeah, just type my name into Instagram or into the internet, and you'll find me on all sorts of different platforms on my website. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, everyone who was here hanging out with us. We appreciate you. You are a beautiful being, full of amazing things, and it is up to you to cultivate that and discover it and mine yourself for the jewels that are within you. And we all have our own personal journey. You are alive for a reason, and the meaning is for you to discover.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much, Matty. I really appreciate it.